there a preference? Medic ID bracelet, necklace, what?
They're going to take it from you once you're in jail. All jewelry is normally removed if you're going to be taken into custody. But the ID bracelet at least corroborates the statements you're going to be making that you've got a serious medical condition. So I'd say wear them, but once you get into the jail, it's not really going to be an issue. The police can arrest you if they witness you breaking the law. So if you symbolically lock down to the front doors of the courthouse, you are breaking the law right in front of them, and they're going to be able to arrest you. Otherwise, they need, either a warrant or they need corroborating individuals to say that they saw you breaking the law. The law actually says that even one informant can be enough for a police officer to come and arrest you. So there's that. Once you are arrested, they're going to take you to the jail, most likely. They can actually give you a ticket and just release you on the scene, but normally these days with protest situations, they are concerned you're just going to go back onto the line and repeat your offense. So normally they are actually handcuffing you and taking you to jail. At that point, when you go to the jail, because they're putting you in this secure facility with other criminals, at that point they can do what's called a skin search. This is not a strip search. This just means that they are allowed to make you take off your jewelry, empty your pockets. They can give you fun jail clothes to wear, though very often that's not the case, especially when you're a short timer. Normally you don't even change into jail clothes. But they are permitted to do that. But it's not, what people think of, like they're going to be crawling up your orifices with magnifying glasses or anything like that. They can only do that in serious, like murder crimes, or if they think that you're bringing in contraband. We have a brochure in the back for people with transdermal piercings. For those of you that don't know what those are, they're the ones that kind of look like they're implanted in somebody's cheek. They can't just take those out like we can take out our earrings. If you have transdermals, please pick up one of those brochures. Keep it in your pocket in case you go to jail to make sure that you are safe once you get to jail. If you are taken into custody, at that point they're allowed to do an inventory search of like your backpack and stuff. This is basically supposed to be a search so that you don't accuse them of stealing stuff from you. But when they're doing that search, if you happen to have an Altoids tin full of marijuana, you can be charged with it at that point if they find it. And you are permitted to be searched by a person of your own gender. If there are any people here from the transgender community, the law says that you are going to be treated as you were with the biological equipment you were born with. So if your birth certificate says you are female and you have female biological parts, you will be housed with females and treated as a female regardless of your self-identity, unfortunately. So, if you are arrested, we want you to say, I'm going to remain silent and I want a lawyer. This puts a magic bubble around you that makes it illegal for the police to continue questioning you. Anything you say after you say this magic phrase cannot be used against you in court. However, if at some point, as you're driving to the jail, the police say, nice weather we're having, or great protest, and you forget that you just put this mud magic bubble around you, and you start talking to them, you have popped your own bubble, and now you have to re-say this phrase in order to get that protection back around you. So if you get nervous and you start chatting with them, and then you remember, oh yeah, that lawyer told me that I should put this bubble around me, then just restate, I am going to remain silent, I want a lawyer, or even just say, I'm taking the fifth. Both phrases mean the same thing, and you'll have that protection around you. Be prepared potentially to be interrogated, but know that you have absolutely no obligation at all to answer any questions. With this type of event and this type of protest, we're not really expecting anything scary, but I'm sure you've all seen the movies where people will play good cop, bad cop, and they can really put the elbow into you a little bit. So, if somehow one of you ends up in that scenario, be prepared potentially to be interrogated. Even if you don't know how to spell the word lawyer, you are entitled to say this phrase. They have to give you a phone book and a reasonable number of phone calls to find one, or call your family members to have them assist you. We're hoping by Saturday to have a designated phone line in case anyone does get arrested and wants to call out for assistance. And we do have over 30 volunteer lawyers right now lined up ready to help if anything happens, and that includes going to the jail. So you've probably all heard of Miranda rights from TV. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is all your Miranda rights. It's long and not very entertaining. So we have come up with an easier version for you to remember. Your demand of rights. We're not asking for them. These are your rights. If you don't exercise them, they won't exist. So I'm not going to talk to you or anyone about anything. Period. I'm not going to speak to anyone until I have a lawyer present. Don't forget, part of the reason this is important is even if you want to confess to the sun and moon, you want a witness to what you are saying. So even if you think you want to cooperate with the police, wait till you have a lawyer present so that if you say the sun rises in the east, it doesn't end up in a police report that you said the sun rises in the west and you have no corroboration for it. I won't answer any questions or reply to any charges without my lawyer present. I don't agree to perform any tests, consent to any searches, DNA, hand samples, writing samples, hair samples, all sorts of things. Unlikely to happen in our scenarios, but just know you have an absolute right to not do any of it. There is an exception for DUI stuff, and we're not going to talk about that tonight. If you want to know about that, you'll come to a different Know Your Rights training that we do. Don't sign anything unless your lawyer tells you to. There is one exception to this. If you end up in jail, they will not let you out of jail unless you sign a release agreement. This says, I'll come to court, I'll obey all laws, and sometimes it has other conditions in it as well. We advise you to just sign it, get out, and if it's got weird, funky stuff, we will deal with it in the courts after the fact. Get out, and we will deal with it afterward. Yeah?
If you are detained and the police ask for permission to perform a test or something similar, you have to give them an answer, right? Or it's considered consent?
Just say, I do not consent.
Okay, and then you have to re-invoke the fifth?
After you say, I don't consent? Yeah. Safety would say, go ahead and spit it out again, but you probably will not need to. Legally, if it went to court and it really came push to shove, saying I don't consent would not waive your Fifth Amendment rights. Saying nice weather and you look cute in that uniform is probably And the bottom one that got cut off is probably the one, if you only remember one thing tonight, you should remember this one, and it says, I will not waive any of my constitutional rights. If you can spit that out, you've gotten at least the baseline covered. Grand juries, we're not going to deal with those because hopefully we won't need to. And now we're going to look at some sample conversations with the police. So, cop's going to come up to you and be like, hi, nice protest. Who's your leader? Where's the organizers? Where are you going next? Anything like that. And you should say, are you detaining me or am I free to leave? And they're going to say, what are you afraid of? I just want to talk to you, blah, 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 blah. And you should say, I choose not to speak with you, thank you, and slowly walk away. If it goes a different direction and you say, are you detaining me or am I free to go? And they say, you're being detained or you're not free to go, then you know that's the trigger. You're now on to phase 2. They want to arrest you. At that point, you want to be invoking those Fifth Amendment rights. But first, before you do that, you're allowed to say, why am I being detained? Make them tell you the basis of the detention if you don't know. Obviously, if people are doing a symbolic sit down in the middle of the street, you probably don't need to know why you're being detained, and that question might be a little frivolous. But just know that once you're being detained, that's when they're allowed to do that pat-down search on you, and that can be of a person of your own gender if you insert that you want that. If you don't already know why you're being detained, make sure you remember what they told you was the reason. Because if it changes, once we get to court, that could be a defense for you. And then the final stage, and the cop says you're being detained, they might just jump right to you're under arrest. And they grab you and they throw you to the ground and they start handcuffing you. We're going to talk a little bit in a second about what is resisting arrest or what is interfering with police officers and things like that. But know that if they say you're under arrest, especially for young males, I always kind of suggest when you're interacting with cops, they want to see your hands. Don't stuff them in your hoodie pocket. The hands are what they're going to be looking at. So to have the safest interactions possible, make sure that your hands are visible. And if they say that you're going to be, they say you're under arrest, that means you're going to be handcuffed usually. The safest way for you to do that is for you to put your hands behind your own back. Otherwise, they're going to pop your shoulder out and ratchet the cuffs on you nice and tight. So if you, especially if you're choosing to be arrested, preserve your body. Know that you're going to be handcuffed. Don't tense up and try to make it so that they can't get your hands behind your back. They're going to do it. And if they can't do it by themselves, they've got 3 big buddies that are going to help them do it, and then you're going to be in pain. And obviously, if they say you're under arrest, you're going to invoke those 5th Amendment rights. I'm going to remain silent. I want a lawyer. We don't need to talk about airports tonight. I'm not going to go, other than what I mentioned for non-documented people, we're not going to talk about that. This document, I just want to briefly mention to you, it's tiny and I don't want you to read it, but what I want you to know about it is it's called a consent to group representation. If an affinity group chooses a symbolic arrest at any time during this occupation, you are permitted to be represented as a political group by a single lawyer or a group